Welcome to Break the Loop, the place where shadows transform into personal power. Here we break the loop, shift timelines, and step into the highest version of ourselves. And today, we reach the moment the entire series has been preparing you for, learning how to break the loop in real time. This episode is where your awareness becomes action. It's where shadow work becomes transformation. It's where identity shift becomes embodiment. And it's where science, psychology, and alchemy meet in a practical moment-to-moment method you can use every day. By now you understand why loops exist. You've seen how emotional memory shapes behavior. You've learned to track shadow echoes, notice emotional signals, and recognize the identity that wants to repeat the past. Today we take that understanding and turn it into a clear structure you can use in the exact moment the loop activates. Breaking the loop is not theoretical. It is not abstract. It is a physiological, psychological, and energetic shift, a change in the nervous system, in the mind, in the identity, and in the timeline. And the moment you know how to intervene in that process, your entire reality begins to reshape. To understand how to break the loop, you must first understand what the loop actually is in real time. A loop is not just a pattern, it is a chain reaction. It begins with a trigger, external or internal. Something happens, or a thought arises, or a memory flickers, or a tone of voice shifts. Instantly, the brain begins scanning for threat. The amygdala, your emotional alarm system, becomes activated. Your nervous system opens an old emotional file: fear, shame, anger, abandonment, rejection. That emotional activation sends signals through the body: tight chest, stomach drop, heat, pressure, numbness. The emotional spike begins, and in that moment, your old identity steps forward, the one shaped by shadow, survival, conditioning, and the past. The identity that loops. This entire process happens in under 5 seconds. 5 seconds decide whether you step into the higher timeline or fall back into the old one. 5 seconds decide whether you repeat the pattern or rewrite it. 5 seconds decide whether your shadow takes the wheel or your consciousness does. Breaking the loop is about using those 5 seconds, interrupting the autopilot reaction, and choosing a different identity before the old one locks back into place. So here is the truth. Breaking the loop is not about force, it is about interruption. You interrupt the old identity. You interrupt the emotional autopilot. You interrupt the narrative. You interrupt the physiology. You interrupt the frequency. This interruption gives your higher identity enough space to come online. Without interruption, the loop takes over. With interruption, you regain choice. This is how awareness becomes power. The first step is recognizing the signal. You feel the emotional spike, the heat, the tension, the contraction, the impulse to shut down or fight, the need to run, the urge to defend or attack. You feel the emotional echo rising. In that moment, instead of collapsing into the emotion, you name it. This is fear. This is shame. This is anger. This is old disappointment. Naming the emotion activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for consciousness and choice. And here is the neurological magic. You cannot be in conscious naming and unconscious looping at the same time. The moment you name it, you shift out of autopilot and into awareness. Awareness breaks the loop. But naming is not enough. You must also interrupt the physiology. This is where we use the disruption breath, a deep, slow, conscious inhale through the nose and an even slower exhale through the mouth. The exhale is key. It signals safety to the nervous system and reduces amygdala activation. It tells your body we're not in danger. You can slow down. You can let go. This breath interrupts the emotional spiral and stabilizes your internal world long enough for choice to emerge. Now that the physiology is interrupted, we move to the narrative collapse. Every loop is held in place by a story, usually unconscious. They're abandoning me. I'm not enough. I can't trust anyone. This always happens to me. I'm unlovable. I need to protect myself. When the emotional spike happens, this story floods in automatically. The narrative collapse is the moment where you consciously disrupt the story. You say, "This is an old narrative. This is not the truth. This is the loop speaking, not me." Collapsing the narrative breaks the mental structure that holds the loop together. Then comes the most important step, the identity switch. This is where alchemy happens. After the story collapses, you choose the identity you want to operate from. You ask, who is the version of me that does not loop here? And you step into that self. Identity is not something you wait for. Identity is something you choose. In that moment, you shift from the shadow identity to the higher identity. This is the inner alchemy. This is the transmutation of shadow into strength. This is the quantum shift, the collapse of one timeline and the activation of another. To lock in the identity shift, we use a physical anchor called the body reposition technique. You change your posture, subtly but intentionally. You lift your chest, you soften your stomach, you relax your shoulders, you breathe from your higher identity. Because emotion lives in the body, identity must be anchored in the body. This single physical shift tells your nervous system, we're not operating from the old self anymore. You re-enter the moment as the new version of you. Then, to complete the loop-breaking process, we use the shadow sentence. I see you, but I choose a higher timeline. This is the moment you acknowledge the shadow without giving it power. Shadows lose strength when seen and gain strength when suppressed. By seeing the shadow and choosing differently, you alchemize it. You turn the old pattern into consciousness. You turn emotional memory into empowerment. You turn the loop into liberation. Let's walk through a real example. Imagine someone who feels rejected or unseen easily. Their trigger is subtle, maybe a delayed text message or a friend sounding distracted. Their emotional signal is tightness in the chest. Their narrative begins. They don't care about me. Their shadow identity emerges. I'm not important. In the past, they would loop, withdrawing, overreacting, overthinking. But now, they recognize the signal. They name it. This is fear. They take the disruption breath. They collapse the narrative. This is an old story from childhood. They choose their higher identity. I am worthy and grounded. They reposition their body. They speak the shadow sentence. I see you, but I choose a higher timeline. And the loop dissolves. They return to clarity. They act from confidence rather than insecurity. Another example, someone who always reacts with anger when criticized. Their emotional signal is heat rising. Their narrative, I'm being attacked. Their shadow identity, I must defend myself. But this time they pause. They name it. This is anger. They breathe. They collapse the narrative. This is not an attack, it's an old wound. They choose their higher identity. I respond with clarity, not defensiveness. They reposition their body, and the loop breaks. Instead of snapping, they respond. Instead of escalating, they stay grounded. Instead of repeating the pattern, they rise above it. Breaking the loop is not about perfection. It's about interruption. It's about choosing again and again. It's about becoming conscious in the exact moment you usually become unconscious. This is the heart of shadow work. This is the essence of identity transformation. This is the art of alchemy, taking the raw, unrefined emotional material of your shadow and turning it into gold. As you practice this, something extraordinary happens. The emotional spike becomes weaker, the narrative collapses faster, the identity shift becomes easier, the new timeline becomes your default, your nervous system rewires, your emotional signature changes, your shadow integrates, and you realize that breaking the loop is not something you do once. It's a lifestyle, a way of being, a way of choosing yourself, a way of choosing your highest timeline again and again. And now we close this chapter of the journey and prepare for episode 12, where we explore the alchemy of shadow and how to turn the very pattern that once held you back into the power that launches you forward. Episode 12 is transformation in its purest form. Until then, break the loop, shift the timeline, and become your higher self.